Like a fat guy putting on shots, you split your sides at Thursday Thoughts. Welcome to this week's episode of Thursday Thoughts with Eddie Anchor. I'm your host, Eddie Anchor. I'm wondering if you even remember me. It's been a whole 3 weeks since I last put out an episode with the split round in there and the unavailability of Anchor Studios. And even last week I was living large in Melbourne with the Tiger Army. The whole thing's just been unavoidable. But I'm back by popular demand, so pop a little Zantac or antacid if you can. Nevertheless, we push on. A shitload has happened in those few weeks, and I will endeavour to bring you up to speed with all the goings on from the past few epic weeks in the Thunderdome. A lot has changed. The Commissioner's continued his winning form, and he's all of a sudden a sneaky chance of poking his nose into the top 4 before the end of the season. But he isn't the only one from the depths of the wooden spoon battle that has been putting on a late season run. Robbo has also won 4 out of his last 5 to officially extract himself from the wooden spoon battle, leaving Ben and Chris to battle it out over the next 2 weeks. Ben is currently red hot favourite, effectively needing to win 2 from his next 2 to avoid the embarrassment of winning the league 1 year and getting the spoon the next. It will certainly bring into question some of the claims that last year was a fluke and that Ben is a bit of a one-hit wonder, a la Alien Ant Farm. Last week's absolute thumping at the hands of Hayden has left Matt nursing a very big headache with 2 rounds remaining. His team is starting to lose momentum and is very much in danger of losing the league in the last round of the year. So, if we take a look at the ladder, that's all. As it currently stands, you'll see the entire thing is compressed like the bones in Bunga's feet. Apart from Ben, who is dagging out the back like a real Mapatazzi that he is. That's all. On top, we still have Matt, but he's limping to the line like a man with a hemorrhoid the size of a Whopper Jr. with cheese sticking out of his ass. Now, he wants to move faster, but he doesn't want the bleeding to get any worse. Ooh, nasty image. Probably was a Whopper with cheese. Like the bullet train, Hayden is mowing him down with every week that goes by. Quietly, I'm hoping he gets there. I actually look forward to mailing him the prize money in Australian dollars, just to be a jerk. The rest of the league is in a big log jam between 11th and 3rd, with only a few games separating all of them. Callum's actually been the big mover in recent weeks, moving into the top 6, and he has one eye on Bunga's spot this week. Bunga's spot's the one with the handicap sticker on it, just in case you were wondering, Callum. Now, it's time to check out this week's matchups. First up, we got Bunga versus Callum. Well, this game is Callum's last chance to climb the ladder. He would need a minor miracle to move up any further if he loses this week. He and Bunga are on the same points. This will keep a very faint hopes of finishing in the top 4 alive. The same can be said for Bunga. While winning isn't something he does much anymore, he is still somehow only 1 game out of 4th spot. It's really just a testament to how badly he has ruined his team from pick 1. Upon going over his team for this week's review, it wasn't even recognisable. It was actually about as recognisable as a hamburger after it's been on its journey through digestion. Although Bunga's team and the finished product of that hamburger have got a lot in common. They both shit. I have to say Callum wins this, not only because he has a better team, but he's been the most improved this year and deserves reward for effort. Callum by 91 points. Matt versus Chris. Could Goliath be slain at the last hurdle? We saw it happen last year when the commish led through the entire season only to be cut down in the shadow of the post. Watch out, because Hayden is coming like Peter North and Matt is starting to falter badly. One more slip up and it could be all over. A week ago he would have been welcoming a game against such a lowly opposition in Chris. But a win by Chris last week, he's now looking to get back on a roll and try and avoid the spoon. A win here not only cement Ben's fate at the bottom of the ladder for 2014, but at the same time make Mac the ugliest bridesmaid in history. I think the champ incumbent will steady the ship and assuredly get the job done this week. Matt by 143 points. Now, Tricky versus Andy. Christopher Reeve's erection stood up longer than Tricky did this season. Let's be honest. It's been nothing short of a pathetic effort buried under more excuses than Mick Malthouse has thrown up this year. There needs to be a full overhaul of the footy department at that club. They need to spend the entire off-season thinking about a new drafting strategy. Firstly, don't draft players that'll break. Now, he's on a 12-game losing streak currently, and it doesn't look like there's any end in sight. Darkness rolls into light, though, as we look at the poster child for the fantasy football. Andy has had an exceptional season, and there's only been a few mighty unlucky results that have probably robbed him of the league this year. Even in the face of adversity with a few losses mid-year, he regrouped and carried on. A lesson that can be learned from Mr. Tricky. Nothing more to be said, Andy by 235 points. Robbo versus Hayden. Matt will be riding Robbo like a $1.25 favourite in Gate 20 this weekend, just urging him to get over the line and help a brother out. A win to Robbo and the league is almost certainly Matt's. There is certainly no reason that can't happen with a big form turnaround from the People's Champ as he has now strung together 4 big wins in a row. Not even Godzilla, a nuclear meltdown, bad sushi, and 137 Japanese people throwing sandals has been enough to slow down Hayden this year, though. He has just gone from strength to strength in the second half of the year, and he's closing in fast. While no one is quite sure what the future holds for his franchise, one thing is for certain, they are leaving nothing in the tank this year. I still think Hayden will win the league, making it the second year running. The winner has been decided on the final day of the league. Hayden by 182 points. Steve versus Tom. Now, I want you to take notice. This is the world. Steve is the worst person ever at Supercoach in this entire space. There's actually a goat herder in Guadalajara who has put together a better team than Steve this year. In fact, if the Guadalajaran goat herder's sister is prepared to look after his mud hut and 14 goats next year, old Ganji is going to fly out to draft day and Steve will be spending his weekends hosting Tupperware parties. Actually works out perfectly for him. And he won't even have to leave his house for work either. For the first time in 2 months, Tom has finally won a game. Woohoo! You wouldn't read about it. Well, some of us might. A few of us couldn't. He's moved back into the top 4, albeit, I expect, for a short-lived period. I actually think this could be the year's first draw. Both of these teams are equally as shit. Now, we move on to Ben versus the Commish. Well, 12 months on and these two are at it again. While last year it was a battle for the league, this year it's a battle for the spoon for Ben. A loss here and he will have a nice spoon to stir the soup he makes in last year's Premiership Cup. Most men use a parachute when they fall that far. Not Ben, he just flapped his arms and hoped for the best. The Commish is hoping to exact a little revenge for last year's clash, where one bad game managed to cost him the league. Despite an ordinary start to the year, 6 wins in the last 7 games have given him a slight snip of finishing in the top 4. But he has said that finishing above Bunga will be enough to satisfy his urges. I actually think, while everything has gone against Ben this week, Lacroix out, Stevie J out, he has a crazy knack for beating the Commish, no matter how impossible things seem. I can't bet against fate. Ben by 1 point. Now, we move on. While superstar Joe Watson has been off injured, he's been working on a variety garden show called Job's Backyard. We've managed to get a snippet of the theme song here. Let's check it out. I've been in Bunga's team a couple of times or maybe more. I was with Mick and that was sick and then I woke up sore. I don't know how it happened, the scan showed that it had tore. Mick dropped me right away. Give me a home with Bung and Cassie, away from Monfries. Our team is shit and I'm so unfit, he'll tell you I a star. Still loves me as I are, more than own Noah. In Job's backyard. yard. Thank you very much for that, Jovi. It was certainly great to get a look and see that you've got a few more talents other than playing football. Now, it's time to move on to Free Agent of the Week. This week's free agent comes from a match I went to last week. This bloke wasn't playing, but his opponent this week was, and he was bloody awful. Heath Grundy is, if nothing else, a very intelligent and diligent footballer. He does everything right and is only ever beaten on his merits. That being said, historically when the Saints play the Swans, Ted Richards gets the unenviable task of going to Nick Riewoldt, which will leave Heath Grundy to play on Reece Stanley. Here is a man with all sorts of athletic ability, but no idea on how to get anywhere near the football. I can see Heath Grundy chopping off almost every forward 50 entry the Saints make this weekend, thus scoring heavily on marks from opposition kicks. Certainly one to look out for this week as a defender. Now, it's time to move on to the final segment of the week, everybody's favourite, and the final for the year before the grand final edition, and the wanker of the year will be announced next week. It's time for Eddie Anker's Weekly Wanker. Now, I've had 3 weeks to come up with one wanker. And the hardest part wasn't finding one, it was deciding between many. Now, first a little freebie. Now, I'm not the spelling police, but just a little clip for Bunga on the way through. Consider this like a Wanker Light Award. I don't mind someone misspelling, but when you misspell your own wife's name, probably worth an honourable mention somewhere. Come on, Bung, lift a little. Now, another little drive-by. Now, I'm all for arrogance and talking it up, as you well know. I like a man who talks a big game. But, at some stage, you have to deliver just a little something other than a box full of hot air. 10 weeks ago, Ben claimed he would finish above Bunga. 6 weeks ago, Ben claimed he would finish in the top half. As recently as 2 weeks ago, he claimed he would finish above the commish. At no stage in any of that period of time has he managed to put any distance between his fat ass and the bottom of the ladder. When Pink Floyd sung about the dark side of the moon, that's what he was talking about, because there has been no daylight between Ben and his ass in such a long time. So, come on Ben, tidy that up a little. Now, this week's wanker almost deserves its own drum roll. Now, there are a few things I admire about Ben as a coach, but at least when he's dodgy, or being dodgy, or thinking about being dodgy, he will do it without a waver in his voice, without a stumble in his stride, and does it absolutely balls out with 100% confidence. So much to the point that he will argue about how legit he has been. They say if you're going to steal something, you just walk in there like it's yours and walk out with it on with your shoulders pinned back and swagger in your walk. You don't sneak around, look over your shoulder and drip sweat all over the store. So that being said, we move on to this week's wanker. Like a kid with his hand caught in the cookie jar this week, the commish confronted a certain coach about a proposed trade this week. He had reviewed it, laughed to himself, confided in others, even gone back into the archives to find evidence of previously passed rules. So the phone call comes through. Hello, can I speak to the Mr. Commissioner? I need him to approve a trade for me. Hold on, I'll get him. Oi Sam, it's for you. It sounds like a little kid on the line. You didn't give your number to Rolf Harris again, did you? Hello? Hi. I'm not sure if you're aware, or have had time to review it, but I have a proposed trade this week. It'd be awfully swell if you could put it through. Now listen, I've looked at this. You're saying you want to give your worst forward and your worst playing midfielder to your brother-in-law, who happens to think giving you his best forward is a good fair trade? I don't think so. In fact, I think you're trying to be dodgy here. Oh, what do you mean? That's a fair trade, isn't it? Callum even said it's a fair trade. Callum's an idiot. It's a dodgy trade, and you know it. Okay, fine. It's okay. I'll see you later. Now, if you're going to try and get away with something, don't roll over the second the heat comes on. If I was ever going to rob a bank, it certainly wouldn't be with you. Never have I seen such a pitiful display. Grow a spine! For that insipid performance as a coach and as a man, Matt, you are this week's weekly wanker. If you're going to be dodgy, at least do it with some conviction, man. Crikey. That's all we have time for this week. Join us next week for the grand final extravaganza. It will be a supersized episode, so set some time aside and get right into it. Good luck with this weekend, stay safe, and bye for now.